We're live.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another weekly coaching session with the amazing Backyard Peace Project team. All of our global ambassadors are here to support you, and we're really, really excited to have you here. I love Wednesdays because I get to drop a bomb on all of the global ambassadors. I never tell them what the conversation is going to be out in advance, and then we just dive in. So I love it. So I feel excited, but everyone else probably feels anxious. But here we go. Something to work through. So, hi team, so great to have you here. I'm bringing something to the table today, which is quite complex, Kel surprise, but it's something I think people struggle with, and it's a lot. And I even had an incident this morning, which I'll explain in a second, which really reinforced this is a really good topic to talk about. So, my topic is how to cultivate our inner peace when it means potentially disrupting the inner peace of somebody else. So this is really tricky. Now, I've just been through this personally, where somebody has reached out to me after an extended period of quiet and wanted to rekindle a friendship. And I lent into it with curiosity and openness. But what I got from that was my whole nervous system went into overdrive. And I thought, I just have not got the bandwidth, I haven't got the capacity, I haven't got the energy, I haven't got, and there was no animosity from me. There was no, I really actually really deeply care about the other person. But my whole nervous system went into overdrive. And I've learned over the years to honor that. And I did so pretty quietly. Like at first, I wrote this long. What a surprise, me writing reams and reams and reams, but I did. And I think that was me working it out within myself. And I decided not to send that. I decided to just peacefully and as lovingly as possible just say, I think it's time for a new season. And I love you. And I genuinely wish you well. I'll always be celebrating you, but it's just come to a natural end. And it's super hard to honor your inner peace if you know your inner peace is going to disrupt someone else's inner peace. And it was really interesting this morning. I was in a group, and as you know, I'm always a little bit skeptical of social media groups because lots of people are giving advice who aren't trained in the areas. And so I feel that is a little bit problematic, to say the least. But this morning I had to jump on because I don't normally partake in the conversation in these areas. But there was a lady explaining that she's been seeing a guy for 10 months. Really fantastic guy, like really amazing guy. He's so good with her kids. He's so good with this. He's so good at that. But her whole system is like, no. And she said, I'm trying to logically override the no because every box is ticked. It's so great. He's so great. He's such an amazing person. I don't want to hurt him. And what was disturbing to me was the amount of people that jumped into the comment section trying to persuade her to override her nervous system and her inner guidance and force it through. And I just thought, that is crazy to me. Like all of us are here working hard on ourselves, doing the inner work so that we can get in touch with our inner guidance, so that we can trust it, because that's why we're here to take that intuitive step, to take inspired action, to live our own individual missions, which doesn't necessarily make sense to us or anybody else, but it feels right. And there's all of these people saying to her, just make it work, just push through it, and I was like, that really kind of upset me. And I had to jump in and to say, I really urge you to honor your nervous system. If your gut says no, please trust it. And please do not allow anybody to persuade you to go against your gut. But I understand also the innate intention of not hurting somebody else in the process. So I would love for you guys to dig into that, because I do feel it is complex, but I've got a feeling of what my answer is through that. And I wonder what you guys can bring to that, because I think it's an important topic that a lot of people struggle with. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our Wednesday morning.
I'm at the edge of my seat. I'm just gonna jump right in if that's okay, because I just want to say thank you for speaking up. And I know that that is so you, Cathy. You are, born to do this. You're born to speak up, and I believe so am I. So when I'm the same, when people are on Facebook and there are so many keyboard warriors having ideas of what you should do that have got no idea what it actually feels like, I usually go just beep, 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 stay out of it, don't do anything. But when it comes to that, I completely agree wholeheartedly. I'm really glad that you put that comment in there, because I believe we all know what it feels like when you are in love and there's this hope and your kids are happy and there's that connection and you want it to feel right and to be right, but it doesn't feel right. And I've been in a situation like that, and I knew from the beginning there was something not right, but my whole heart, my whole brain, everything wanted it to be right. So I wrote it out for 14 months until I finally walked away. But I was my whole being wanted it to be right. But the feeling told me all along that it wasn't. There was something missing. There was something lacking. I don't want to go into any more detail. Then I'm grateful that I eventually, even though it took me a lot of time and a lot of heartache, that I eventually listened to that and walked away. And I believe that it was the absolute right decision. So I really think the very nutshell message is intuition over wanting.
Mm,
Absolutely, because we all want to be in a relationship that is beautiful and connected and everything is there and it looks beautiful on the outside, but it doesn't feel right. And intuition is always my number one go-to. So I want to go into what the actual question is here. The what if it interrupts somebody else's peace? So if we use that as an example, then I feel the answer is like, what if we were meant to trigger something that needed to be shaken up?
mm,
That's all I want to say here. I know there could be so much more that I could put on the table here, but I feel it's like a can of worms for me. Like if I go any further, then I'm going to go down the rabbit hole, and I want everybody else to have the chance to say something here as well. But that's all I want to put out there for now. That's
mm,
I really think, what if that was meant to shake somebody else's peace? And yeah, it always opens to more learning, to going deeper, to healing. Yeah.
mm. Thanks, Marie.
I completely agree. And that was actually my first thought when you said that, Cathy, about, you know, our peace disrupting somebody else's peace. And really, in the long run, if we stay silent and if we continue to go with it, and it's going to hurt more and more and more, are we really, like, at some point we are going to disrupt the other person's peace, right? it,
Mm, mm,
it and it and it could be far worse at that point. If you just keep going along, this person ends up getting married, you've got a whole different situation, right? And then in the end, it could just end up being so much worse. So I agree with Marie that maybe it is something that needs to be triggered or something addressed with the other person if something's not feeling right. And I've been there. I've definitely been there. I've been there in relationships, romantic relationships, and I've also been there in friendships as well
mm,
too. And I had a friend that we'd been friends for a long time. We had a falling out, and she's continually wanted to come back into my life. And I did give her an opportunity, and she just went back to the way she used to treat me before. So, I was disrupting my peace to give her another chance, but in the end I just had to say, this just doesn't work anymore. You know, we've had our time. We both need to move on. And she became very, very angry with me. So, you know, that's sometimes the consequence, right? That when you say, I just can't do this anymore, this isn't working for me, you do risk the other person coming at you in you know, either verbally or whatever. And in the end, is that worth it as well too, right? So sometimes it's smart to take the step when we're feeling it, because it, you know, as I say, the further it goes, the worse it can get.
Agreed. And look, you know, it's not an easy answer either way, because you can either go, oh, I'm just going to carry on because I haven't got the energy or the bandwidth or the heart to end that. So either way is hard. Either you have the really uncomfortable conversation and go, it's time for us to go into different seasons now, and with love and respect and, you know, great gratitude, or you continue down that road and long term it's hard. Because you're like, oh, I've put myself in a situation again and my nervous system is fried and I knew this was going to be like this and I didn't trust myself. And but it's a really tricky thing, because you have to go inward and go, am I doing this for the right reasons? You know, am I calibrated at the moment? Am I reacting to something else and projecting it onto this situation? So it's like you've got to be really mindful in the decision making to make sure it's fair and it's a true reflection of where you are, and not a reactive projection of a situation that you're in momentarily. So it's like, it's tricky.
Yes.
Well done, Paul.
It's absolutely. And if you think about, I guess my mind's going into lateral and expansive sort of in depth of, it's not just relationship in a friendship or, you know, a romantic one. It's your relationship. Everything that you do is a relationship. Your work, your career, your business, your connection with finances, your health. It's a relationship that you have. But in the, I guess, in the depth of it all, there's only one thing that stands within that space. And this is where I find that with a lot of people, there's so much disconnection with themselves.
Mm.
And so within that space of being disconnected with themselves, they want to please everyone else to make themselves feel like they fit in or they belong or they makes them feel better. Because we tend to lack the abilities and the skills to look after ourselves on that level, and to actually sit in the pain and go, you know what, this is not actually really good for me. Because everybody, not everybody, but there's a lot of people want the comfort and the ease and the safety and you know, it's just easier to stay with that person or to stay in that job. And you know, and even through my own experiences, like you stay in there long enough, your body's going to eventually push you and mentally and emotionally out of that situation.
Mm.
So do we stay to keep everyone else happy, the boss happy, the partner happy, the friendship happy, in disregard to your own health and mental well-being and emotional well-being, because that's where it turns into issues. And this is why therapists have such great jobs, because there's so many people disconnected and trying to find their way back to self. If we look at it in the bottom line, trying to reconnect into who am I and what really matters to me. And this has been a big theme that's come up in the last week or so in regards to time and wealth in time and valuing you and your time. Every moment that you're in a space where you're either feeling heavy, sad, you know, obviously emotions are there, but then in terms of this conversation, your body gives you the cues every single time. If it feels good, it feels great, it feels light and energetic and you're inspired, fantastic. Stick with that or do more of that. Or if you're feeling heavy, doubt, and as you're saying, Cathy, is about the nervous system is giving you the clues that something's not right. We all have the instinct, but we've so let go of trusting that. And we trust everything outside of us more so than the inside. And so it's like diving into, how do we actually step into knowing who we are? How do we trust that? And how do we have the guts and to listen to our guts and to have that honest conversation with someone, no matter what level that is?
What I love about what you're saying, Paul, is it's so relevant to me. Like when I've been assessing that particular incident, there was a kind of melancholy in me on reflection about how many hoops I jumped through for this person, to the detriment of my health, to the detriment of my nervous system, to the detriment of my family time. I kind of felt a bit sorry for that version of me that didn't have that groundedness, that didn't have that centeredness, because what I learned through this was I'm such a different person now than when we became friends.
Yes.
And this was kind of, I felt like it was like a quiet revolution, guys, because I was super quiet with it. I was just like, there was lots of things coming at me. And I was just very quiet in my response and just holding the line quietly and calmly, but I wasn't going to move from that line. And I actually was talking to my daughter about it and said, I was quite surprised. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was uncomfortable, and I made sure that I was being honorable to that person and to myself and making sure it was what I would consider to be a loving parting of ways. But it also made me realize how much I've grown in the last 5 years, because the old version of me would have done exactly what you have just articulated. I would have gone for safety. I would have gone for approval. I would have gone for belonging at any cost. And it was kind of a revelation for me to go, wow, I didn't realize I had evolved so much in the last 5 years that this is no longer tolerable to me. I can't do this anymore. Like I know I need more, and I've grown past this point. So I think what you've articulated, it's certainly relevant for me and will be relevant for a lot of people listening.
I think that's the key point, though, Cathy, that you just said, that you do it in a loving way. When you feel that the friendship, the relationship has run its course, or it's not healthy for you anymore, your intuition is giving you a clear no, to voice that and communicate that in a loving way, and it just speaks to your growth. When we get to a point, like I have experienced a lot of that, like really deep, long-standing friendships. Like one of them in particular, I've known her since we were 12 and 13. We met in high school, and that relationship ended through my way, not just, I want to be very clear here, but in that grief period after Rob passed away, a lot of things came to the surface that have been there all along, but have never been addressed for various reasons. And I experienced that as additional grief. It was really deep, deep grief for me to lose that friendship that was so important to me. And it also, and I think that's the key sentence here, it also gave me a lot of grounds for additional growth. I had to be super honest with myself, what my part was in this. And there were a lot of parts that I felt very uncomfortable looking at, that didn't feel comfortable owning, but they were overdue for me to own and grow through that. And that, to me, was a win-win situation, even though it was painful, even though we still haven't talked about it and it might never happen. But there was this point where I had to come to terms with, well, our path has just parted here. It doesn't mean that they will never, ever come back together. Who knows? But that's not what it's about. It's about owning my part in it. It's about owning myself in that, what feels unhealthy, what doesn't, and sort of also sometimes freeing the other person and not holding another person in something that is just not meant to be right now or anymore. And that takes a lot of steps and a lot of self-honoring. But all of that, going back to what I just said, what you mentioned, doing it in a loving way, I think that's really, really important.
What's coming through for me here is all of the conversation has been about individual personal growth. And relationships are often there in front of us to actually help us grow and develop. And it just seems to me that that's what you're all talking about is just really growth. Because we can't control how anyone else is going to react emotionally to anything. But if we honor who we are and then communicate it, as you've said, Cathy, in a loving way, then what that person takes from that, we can't have any influence over that. That's their growth.
Yeah.
Yeah, can I just chime in? I agree with Judy there. I feel like for us to level up and to get to the next level, we are responsible for our own emotions. We are not responsible for somebody else's emotions. So as long as we're coming from a place of love and a place of kindness, it is, yeah, we are not responsible for somebody else's, how they control their emotions, and how it, if we can't, in life, people are going to come in for a reason or a season. So there's always going to be people that will defrag from our life for new people to come in, and as well for us to heal from our parts as well. Different relationships will come in for to level us up and for to get us to the next stage in life, and for to help us fulfill our purpose. New people will come in. People will always come in for to learn a lesson.
Yeah, agreed. And you know, even though I welcomed the ending of that season, I had some sadness, I had some grief. I'm going to look back on it fondly. It wasn't all bad, and I feel like if all endings could be that peaceful and loving, how wonderful the world would be. That we don't need to demonize the other person. We don't need to, yeah, there were behaviors, yeah, but you know what? I allowed behaviors. As you were saying, Marie, that radical responsibility. I did not have my boundaries intact and I was not enforcing them. So that was my learning. And I cannot blame another person for my lack of boundaries. If I'm going to let them do all of these things, they're going to do it because they don't know any different, because I haven't communicated anything else. So that was my profound learning through that, for sure. And I can't demonize the other person for going, I lacked boundaries. Do you know what I mean? So I think
Your
that's
values
really
have
important.
changed. Your
Totally.
values have changed within that relationship as you've grown, as you've healed triggers that you would have allowed to push your boundaries at previous stages of the friendship. Your boundaries have been put up and you are strong in your boundaries. So you've shown growth within yourself then as well.
And it's so interesting how things happen in clusters, because I was out with my girls, my two big girls, Tristan's girlfriend and my big girl, and we were walking along the mall and I saw somebody that I haven't seen for years. And that friendship ended in a time I really needed support after I'd had Taya. I was in a physical wreck. I was an emotional wreck. Taya was a prem. It was all just really difficult. Ian was 7 hours away. I had 4 other kids. And she decided to walk away from that friendship in that moment. And that was really painful for me, because the little bit of support system I did have here sort of disintegrated before my eyes in a time that I really, really needed love and support. And so I went through a whole catalogue of emotions through that. Like, first was guilt and shame. How could I have shown up differently? Why is this person leaving me right now? And then anger and all of the things. And I worked through it and just came to my own conclusion of, well, I'm angry with myself for allowing that to happen and all that sort of thing. And we were walking through the mall the other day, and she walked past me. And it was so interesting because the previous version of me, my stomach would have flipped, my nervous system would have fried, I'd have been trying to get away, my palms would have been all, my wrists would have been all horrible, like I was on a tall building, and I'd have felt in that fight, flight, freeze, fawn type state. And it was so weird. I was so calm, and I looked directly into her eyes, and she looked directly into my eyes. And I just sort of looked at her as if to say, I see you. And she looked at me as if to say, I see you. And then we just went on about my day. But I did say to the girls afterwards, how do I look? Do I look all right? I've just seen somebody I haven't seen for 8 years. But do you know what I mean? It's like, that was interesting to me as well, that my nervous system was calm. I didn't have that fight, flight, freeze, fawn that I would have had years ago. If I'd have seen her in public, I'd have been panicking. But this was just like a really weird locking of eyes, moving on, getting on with our day, which was kind of cool.
You'd already processed it, so you didn't need to go there again.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, interesting. Jennifer, you unmuted and then you muted and then you unmuted and then you muted. So you've got me on the edge of my seat. What do you want to say?
because my dogs keep barking. Just because they know I'm talking to somebody else and not them. I don't know that I can add anything. I just, listening to everyone, it's, yeah, I agree. And I wrote down a few things as people have been speaking, our piece versus someone else's. And where's the breaking point? There's always a breaking point. Someone's going to get upset. Someone has to sit with the pain. And then using our own gut, listening to our own gut. I think I learned from an early age to listen to me and block out the external because it was survival skill. So always listen to your gut. And that's one thing I taught my kids growing up. Don't worry about what I say or what anyone else says. What do you feel? What do you feel? That is really important. And I still say it to them now when they're unsure about something. Listen to yourself. Go for a walk, wherever, nature, coffee, whatever. Listen to yourself first. Block out everyone else. And when you get to a point where you do break, a relationship, whatever, you do come to a point where you have to stop it, put an end to it. You try and do it lovingly as you can. But like, I can't remember who said, but you can't control what the other person thinks or is going to react to it. But that's a part of the growth. That's the personal growth. And I think we've all been through it, just listening to everyone. It's like, yeah, I get that. Because I think we've all been there in one way or another. So I don't know what I can add to it. It's really complex. You always pull out the really complex ones, Cathy. But they're great conversation starters. We need to have these conversations, I think. So, yeah, I don't know what else I can add. I just sitting here as everyone's speaking going, wow, yes, I get that. Yeah, it is personal growth. It is acceptance. I don't know. I don't know what else I can say.
I feel like the important point that you've dropped in there is for the kids.
Yeah.
Because I totally agree. I could not agree more. Like with my kids as well, I've always said, what do you feel? Because your journey isn't supposed to make sense to me, right? And so sometimes they've made decisions. I'm like, I don't get it, but go for it. If it feels right, go for it. It's always worked out, but I don't understand it. They're growing up in a different time than what I grew up in. But we watched a film many years ago. I think we had just had the two little ones then, and it was called Compliance. I don't know whether you've ever seen the film Compliance. And it's a mixture of real stories, so that it's not just one. The whole film isn't exactly accurate, but it is a mixture of different incidents that happened in America of people overriding their intuition and doing the most awful things, like ordinary people who were spoken to by a fake police officer over a phone, telling them to do these certain things, which are human rights violations pretty much, and they were doing it because they thought somebody in authority was telling them to do it. And so it was a really, really interesting film. And that's, we were very young parents, very inexperienced parents. I think Sky was about 2 or 3 at the time. And we were like, whoa, we need to teach our kids to question authority. We need to teach our kids to be autonomous. We need to teach our kids to trust themselves. And that's how we've always raised them, not to be defiant to authority, but certainly to respectfully question things and certainly say no if everything about them is screaming, this is wrong, I don't want to do this. And so I think that was a really important point that you threaded through, that what we're teaching our children and how we're teaching them to be.
Yeah, it's something I've always done. And when I was teaching, it's something I did in my classroom, teaching early childhood, but letting those kids know it's okay to speak up. It's okay to say how you feel, I guess, as the beginnings of listen to yourself, I might be the adult in the room, but that doesn't mean, if you're feeling, if you don't like something that I've said, we need to have a conversation. And sort of, trying to teach them at a very young age to listen to themselves. Yeah, and I think, you know, for me, that's just always been really, really important.
Mm. I mean, look, why you've jumped in at exactly the right time for you, because you do specialize in working with mothers and children. And so this is really your jam. And what we're talking about is, in order to honor our own, and thank you, Marie, for giving Lapway the heads up, but we're talking about how to honor our inner peace when we know that by honoring our inner peace, we're going to disrupt somebody else's inner peace. So ending of relationships, ending of friendships, maybe ending of a job, as Paul was saying, or everything's a relationship. And so with your expertise in working with families and young children and parents, what would you say would be the most important things to communicate with our kids that kind of goes against how we were taught to be parents, in a sense that we're very much do as I say, this is the best thing for you, but we're starting to build more autonomy through our parenting now, that we're saying, what do you think? How do you feel? What's your guidance on this? And a lot of parents now, which is great, are teaching their kids to honor themselves. Where's the balance between honoring yourself and becoming defiant and not listening to your teachers? And do you know what I mean? Like, how do we balance that? It's a big question for you, but what's been your experience?
Yeah, all right. Nowadays, parenting is not like what you mentioned. Oh, you have to listen to me. You break up with your friend because I know that friend is not going to be a good influence to you. It doesn't work like in the past, like nowadays, because to them I think part of the parenting is being passed on to social media, and children look at the social media as a parent. So children are looking into that as, I know what I am doing because this is what is being shown everywhere. So instead of telling the kid, you should not be you should not be friend with this person, it's like, instead of doing that, telling them what to do, we ask them questions. Well, why do you want to be with this friend? How do you feel when you're with this friend? So get to know the context of why your child is befriending someone which you think that is not a good influence to him or her, and understand what is the context, why your child is holding on to that friendship so tightly. So from that, then we tackle along the way, instead of pushing it through the child, and they will start to rebel and hate you for breaking their friendship. So that's the main thing that I have found out, like guiding those parents and kids. This is the way to work with the kids nowadays, rather than telling them what to do.
I love this so much because it really encourages that connection and understanding, rather than dictating what you feel or think is right for your child. And I know for a fact that as a mom, as a parent, you always try to protect your children, but it's not helping in the long run if you make decisions for them that might work or help when they're really little. But even then, it's that fostering the understanding of their decision making, because they might hang out with a guy or girl where you think, oh my God, he or she is bad news. But for your child, they might be latching onto that confidence that they might be lacking, and see just that in there, not the bad things that person might be doing or the bad news they might be. I know, I understand how judgmental that sounds, but you get the gist. It's that understanding that I really like what you brought to the surface here. And also, another thing that came up for me while I was listening to all of you share, there was this point where I'm like, I remember a moment where I thought, when that happened so many times in a row after Rob died, and then I lost some really, really important friendships, I got to the point where I'm like, okay, reality check here, Marie, who's the common element? It's me. And other than what I've said before, the owning my parts in all of this, I also had to come to the understanding that I'm the common element in my stories, but the other person is the common element in her or his stories. And we all are the common element in our stories. So it's not just always about, okay, I'm such a bad person, I've done everything wrong, I'm losing all these friendships. It's okay, I have evolved in a direction where those people did not want to come with me, or they had their own stories or their own path. there's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. It is my path. And I owned it by listening to my intuition. And in the survival mode that I was in, I had no capacity to open my heart and my mind to what's going on in their life. And I'm okay with that. I'm not bashing myself up for it because I had other stuff to deal with, you know. So I don't know, like it's coming from around so many different topics coming in, but I really wanted to share that as well. Thank you.
I might jump in. Yeah, so many good levels of where this conversation goes into. My mind's just going, trying and just seeing it where it fits everywhere, and loving how. And again, going back to what Judy said, it comes back to us every single time. Like it's always us, and it is listening to, or learning to listen to the nervous system, which is directly related to the body, and then it's also using your senses. Like it's bringing us back to being human again, like proper human, like instincts, and using our abilities of our body and what our mind and our nervous system will tell us in time. And I came across this concept or words, but it's like there's chronos, which is our linear time. It is time. You need to go and do this thing, and it's where you have to step into counting the hours, and you've got deadlines and things like that. But then there's kairos, which is the in the moment, critical moments when action is needed, and listening to your instincts. And so that kairos is the internal instinct, and it's almost like flow. When you're in the flow and you're listening to your nervous system and you're allowing, even if it's painful, to make the decisions that are going to allow you to step into your life fully. And sometimes it's going to upset some people. But as everyone's saying, it's like we are learning, we are growing, we are expanding in each and every moment. Sometimes the pain, and I'm sure we can all agree to a degree that the painful situations, if we look back to a year ago from a painful situation where we are now, and look at the growth that we've had in our lives and our mental well-being and our consciousness and our confidence and strength in our own abilities to be able to survive, for one, and then to build on that. If you can go either way, but if you look into your life, and what we're all about is let's grow together, let's expand and understand each other. And we're all human. We all have the same nervous system, yet everyone's going to have their own idea of what a piece of paper cut would feel like. Everyone's got their own experiences and their own, I will react to it or I won't react to a paper cut from their journey. So I'm using paper cut as a basic sort of idea, but I know we all have maybe cut ourselves at one point and there's a pain in there. Yet some will just go, it's a paper cut, so what, move on. Others will go, oh my God, take me to the hospital. Extreme nervous system breakdown. So it comes down to, again, like the way we're talking about the schools and Jen talking about the schools, of how do we share this with our children so then they don't grow up in a space, or so they do grow up in a space of knowing themselves. The entire journey is about know thyself, know you, know what matters, what is your actions and reactions, and where do they fit or don't fit into your life. And then again, it's like what you're saying, Kath, is exploring and teaching our children as best we can to make their own decisions. And that needs to be for them to understand themselves in connection and confidence. And confidence comes from knowing and giving them the ability to ask themselves the question, does this fit? Does it feel good? Should I do more of this? Does that person feel like a good fit in our friendships? Do their behaviors fit into what you want in your life? And that's not just for the children, but it's for us as well. And going back into I guess the start of the conversation is the depth of the relationship in any matter, no matter how old or young you are. It's like comes back to you to make the choice and decisions of where you step into, and trusting and listening to yourself. And the best relationship is with you. Because once we get that, and it's an ongoing journey, but once we start to understand that, like we were saying, Cathy, when you walk past that friend, the trigger was neutral, as opposed to, oh my God, there's that person again. Your gut goes in, and then I'm out of here. Or you try and, the fawn of like try to please them. Oh, my friend, you're so good to see you again. But in your head, you're going, that's baloney. That's totally not true. You walk away and then you're like bad mouthing them. So it's always deep. I love these chats. It's always, allows the expansion of our own understanding of and looking into our own lives and our experience, and where do we share this and how do we simplify this so then others can learn and grow as we chat. I love it. So thank you all.
And what I love about everybody on this call and everybody in our Backyard Peace Project community is our missions individually and collectively is to help people get to that point where they can calm their nervous system, so they can read their intuition, so they can hear their inner voice, and they can come home to themselves to such a degree that there's more detachment from how protecting our own inner peace is received and reacted to, because you're honoring yourself. And so everybody here is serving people in that mission, in bringing them to a calibrated space where we can have tough things to navigate through, but we can do so calmly and solidly within ourselves. And I'm not saying it's never going to be uncomfortable, but things in the past, they used to throw me for a week, a month, 2 months. Like if something happened, I'd be like, I'm going under the duvet. I can't see anybody. I'd go into that horrible retreat. And now, it might be uncomfortable for half an hour. It might be uncomfortable half a day, but then I'm like, okay, let's move on. So the more work we do on ourselves, the more we can calibrate by doing the breathing, by working through our grief, by getting the coaching that we need, by learning how to lead our children. We're not just raising them, we're leading them, we're guiding them, we're empowering them, to the point where I'm quite scared of some of mine because they're so empowered. I'm like, whoa, not here though, out there. Don't do it in here. That's exhausting. But everybody here is dedicated to that mission, which is what I love so much about our community. You're giggling.
I just wanted to add that when I focused more on honoring myself, because I used to have awful boundaries. I was such a people pleaser. And I'm a recovering people pleaser, but I had such awful boundaries. But the moment I started to respect myself and honor my boundaries, it also allowed me to learn how to honor other people when I was having to end things. So like you say, doing it with kindness. I remember somebody saying once, somebody that I dated for 18 months, and I had to end the relationship. And I went over to his place and sat down with him face to face and said, we both deserve to go our separate ways. We're not happy. And somebody said to me later, you actually broke up with him face to face? And I'm like, well, my God, what other way would I have done it? Well, you could have called him or sent him a text. I'm like, we were together for 18 months. He deserved more than that. And his reaction to, he was shocked that I was ending the relationship, but yet it gave us time to talk through it and talk about why, we both needed to go our separate ways. So that whole process of loving myself has also made me aware of doing it in the most loving manner and trying to honor them as best that I can, rather than in the past being upset and resentful because I was breaking my own boundaries, but I was resenting them for it, and then having a big blow up and and hurtful words or a hurtful way to end it. So it's taught me a lot to honor myself.
What it brought up for me when you were speaking there, Connie, was so interesting and powerful, because I was thinking, and it's going to make you laugh. It is going to make you laugh. But no, I was thinking how to receive that gracefully, because that's tough as well. Like if someone says you don't want to be friends with you, like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean you don't want to be friends with me? I'm awesome, you know? But honoring somebody else's piece of whatever reason, whatever they're going through, to be able to receive it. And what came up for me, Connie, when you were speaking, is one of my boys, I'll be as vague as I can, but one of my boys decided that his little girlfriend boyfriend thing, that they're quite young, wasn't going to pan out, and it gone beyond, he you know, it didn't really want it. He's kind of shepherded into that sort of relationship, and he was going to text her. And so Scar and I were like, no, you're not going to text her. So we sat him down, and we got this beautiful card, and we helped him write this really heartfelt card, and we got a box of chocolates, we wrapped it beautifully, and we got this bunch of flowers, so that would be a beautiful ending for her as well. But she was awful. So he did that beautifully. Did it very sensitively. We sat him down and did the whole thing. And she got friends to hate message him. He got threats. And I was like, whoa, that's so interesting. I didn't think that would, I mean, I expected her to be upset and disappointed and hurt. And that's why we did the ending as kindly and as beautifully as we could. But I was like, whoa, you guys need to have a conversation as a family, because this is not the way to receive an ending. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's really important for us to be aware as well that, you know, if somebody doesn't have immaculate taste and they don't want to be friends with us, that we have to make peace and honor their inner peace as well, and go, okay, I have to accept that.
Yeah. 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 But I think that little person will at some point way down the road, like it'll leave an impact. And at some point down the road, they'll say, man, I was pretty awful. He did all these sweet, special things of a special way to say goodbye. And man, was I an awful person to him. So the message or the lesson may not land at that time. But, you know, as they say, hindsight is 20/20, right? We eventually reflect on that and we go, okay.
We hope.
So,
we hope.
Exactly. I think what you did was beautiful. And if he had done it through text, maybe he would have gotten the same reactions.
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
Threats, everything. But this shows honor.
Interesting. All right, my lovelies, we are nearly at the end of the hour. So does anybody want to round off? Does anyone have something burning that they want to share before we close? Of one last thought? Everybody good? Okay, amazing. Well, guys, this was an amazing conversation as always. I do feel like having these sometimes uncomfortable, confronting, like we dig deep into ourselves and we're being quite vulnerable in our sharing. But as leaders, I feel it's important for us to do that, because by doing that, we give others the permission to have the courage to do the same, because it's not easy exposing your underbelly. You know, it's not easy sharing those parts of yourself. But unless we do honor and integrate and embrace all of the parts of ourselves, then we are holding ourselves back from that true power and self-worth and autonomy. So thank you so much for being here as always. Everybody, these guys are all available in the Backyard Peace Project. All of their wisdom, their classes, their masterclasses, their sessions, their presence is all there for you. And it's only $12 a week, guys. I've really tried to make it affordable and accessible, and you've got all of these incredible minds there just to wait for you, to serve you. So thank you so much for being here, and we shall see you next time.